everyone, Lady Amalthea here. If you're new to my channel, I talk about tarot and books. That's mostly it so far, and witchy things. Probably got some other things up the pipeline, but we shall see. So today, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's already July. So I've only read 32 books so far this year, which means I'm ahead of schedule for my goal of 50 in 2024. I've had a challenging year with some ongoing health issues, so I'm trying to be gentle with myself, though I'm not particularly good at that at the best of times. Oops, I'm trying, I promise. So I thought I'd talk about books, the books I have read so far this year, as there have been some wonderful ones, and let's face it, I love talking about books. Now I know they say never judge a book by its cover, but besties, let's be honest, I do. I get the majority of what I read from the library, and a cover is the first thing that catches my eye. Sometimes I pick up things because I've heard about them online, especially from my friend Katie Flowers over at Katie One More Time, or just randomly in the course of being on the internet. I don't watch a whole lot of booktube content, so I'm not always reading whatever is in. Generally, I enjoy what I read as I'm pretty confident of picking a book I'll like. I'm a generous star giver. I love to support the things I love. I've borrowed more from the library than I've ended up reading so far this year, which always happens, but I always have good intentions. So far, the majority of my reading material has come from the library. Whilst I have bought a number of physical books this year, mostly from Rabble Books and Games in Maylands here in Perth, my favourite ever bookstore, and a few from a local second-hand bookstore, I've only read one of the physical books I've bought, 3 Kindle titles, 1 audiobook from Libro FM, 2 titles from Everand, both audiobooks, and the rest have been from the library. Mostly physical, with a few audiobooks and even an audio CD. I started a few that have had to be returned to the library, so I'm not counting them on my finish list. I will get back to them eventually. I've only DNF'd one book, as I found out after I borrowed it that the author was a Zionist, and I don't need that in my life. The majority of my reads have been fiction, a few non-fiction, but not many. There will definitely be more as the year progresses. There always is. Now, I'm not going to talk about every book. I'm going to go with the questions from the mid-year freakout tag. I found these on someone's website, so I'm not sure if they're the exact questions or if I'm missing some. Sorry, excuse me, itchy nose. Allergies, winter, it's always the case. So, question 1, the best book you've read so far in 2024, The Boy from the Mish by Gary Lonesborough. I've been meaning to pick this up for years, since I first heard Katie rave about it. Queer, coming of age, and Indigenous, how could I not love it? And love it I did. I just sobbed for that queer teen inside of me who got no representation. I'm bisexual and non-binary, so yeah, none of that in the 90s and noughties when I was growing up. What is the best sequel you've read so far in 2024? Yeah, it's going to be Dark Star Burning Ash Falls White by Amélie Wen Zhao. This was my most anticipated book of the year. Well, okay, fine. Red Side Story by Jasper Fforde was, but I still haven't read it. I have never consumed an audiobook so quickly. My goodness, it was incredible. I knew I'd love it because I loved book 1 in the Song of the Last Kingdom duology, Song of Silver, Flame Like Night. Question 3. New release you haven't yet read but want to get to. Well, it's definitely got to be Red Side Story by Jasper Fforde. The long, extremely long awaited sequel to Shades of Grey, which was published back in 2009 and is such a good book. I've put off reading Red Side Story in the hopes that the Gordini, I don't know how it's pronounced, Protocols, which is book 3, will come out sooner rather than much later. Most anticipated release for the second half of 2024. What the Library Knows, is that what it's called? I have it on my list, by Isabel Ibañez. Sorry, I don't know how I missed that. That is my most anticipated. It's meant to be coming out in November, I believe. I read book 1, What the River Knows, in January, February, I'm not exactly sure when, and just loved it. Question 5, biggest disappointment? borrowing a book by a Zionist, not reading as much as this time last year, having to return The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty before I got a chance to finish it because I'm in a semi-reading slump. Question 6. Biggest surprise. It's a hard one. I suppose I will say The Miracles of the Naimya General Store by Keigo Higashino. I think that's how you pronounce it, because I read it after the month it was in my book club, as the description didn't grab me, but it was right up my alley. I have a thing for letters across time. Next up, gotta watch the movie. New favourite author. Now that's a toss-up between Gary Lonesborough and Karen Foxlee. I've been working my way through the Miss Mary Kate Martin's Guide to Monsters series, and I'm just adoring them. Miss Mary Kate reminds me so much of the anxious but curious child I was. Well, let's face it, I just grew taller, if anything, certainly not less anxious. And oh, Ash Harrier. I'm sad I missed out on a chance to meet her at my local library, as I was very anxious that day. The Alice England mysteries are also right up my alley. It's so nice to see all these anxious, autistic-coded young adventurers. Question 8. Newest fictional crush. I don't care if it makes me basic, but I adored Whitford Hayes in What the River Knows by Isabel Ibañez. Yes, he's a sexy rake. I would never, never, never go for this kind in real life, but it's fun to fantasize in a book. I am so looking forward to book 2. Bring on November. Question 9. Newest favourite book character. Now that's got to either be Miss Mary Kate Martin or Alice England. You know what? I'm picking both. Yes, they're both middle grade books, series. No, I don't care. I read for enjoyment. I read to heal my wounded inner child. I read for the representation I didn't get as a child, especially as a late diagnosed autistic assigned female at birth, AFAB, adult, who truly never saw myself represented in stories as a child. Both to me come across as autistic coded. Both are so beautifully written, and they remind me so much of myself at their ages. Not that I got to go on those adventures. I'm partway through book 2, The Trouble with the Two-Headed Hydra of Miss Mary Kate Martin's Guide to Monsters, and I've got a copy of Strange Sightings, which is book 3 of Alice England, in my very large pile of library books. Question 10. Book that made you cry. Oh, I'm a crier. I'm not going to pretend I'm not. So the first book I sobbed my eyes out to this year was definitely The Boy from the Mish. I even cried in the sex scene because it just felt so incredible to see queer representation in YA, particularly Australian and Indigenous. That book just broke me to pieces. Definitely cried in Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, book 2 in the Emily Wilde's... What's that series called? I didn't write it down. I was the first person from my library to get my hands on this. What a delight. I can't wait for book 3. Hopefully it comes out next year. Oh, Dear Son, edited by Thomas Mayer, is a collection of letters from sons to fathers and fathers to sons, which is by Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander men. And it was just so beautiful, really, really healing. I think it's an important book that everyone living on so-called Australia should read. And the book that had me weeping the most on the couch was Dark Star Burning Ash Falls Wet, as I knew it would. Oh, big time. And I don't know if I cried, but it definitely made me very emotional, was We Could Have Been Friends, My Father and I by Shehadeh, which we read just this month, June, for the Blossom Book Club that I'm in with Katie Flowers. Book that made you happy is question 10. I mean, most books make me happy. They're books after all. But it's probably Emily Wilde's Map to the Otherlands. That sequel was just so lovely. And the fairies in it, oh, it was just so much fun. Favorite book to movie adaptation you've seen so far this year? Well, that would have to be The Secret of Rowan Inish, which was originally The Secret of Ron More Skerry by Rosalie K. Fry. Whilst I haven't read the book, I definitely need to. It was a delight of a movie. It's about selkies. What's the most beautiful book you bought this year? Oh, that's easily the cover of Unicorn Sonata by Peter S. Beagle, which is out of print. It has the most beautiful unicorn cover. I snagged it for a ridiculously low price at the local secondhand bookstore. It was in the children's sections, which puzzled me because it's not a kid's book. Oh, and the cover for The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Molly Ringwald has such a beautiful cover. I haven't bought that many physical books this year, although my spreadsheet is out of date and hasn't been updated since March. I definitely bought some books a few weeks ago during Ravel's 6-year birthday sale weekend. I'm waiting for them to get a copy of I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle in for me. I'm really looking forward to that one. Question, I have no idea what question number this is. What book do you really need to read by the end of the year? Well, I'd like to clear some stuff off my currently reading list, which is 25 titles. Oh dear. Yeah, well, we'll see. A few of them are library books I need to read, borrow to finish off, like The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi, and I would like to make it to 50 books. I would like to exceed 50 books, but I'm not going to push myself. I don't want reading to ever be a stressful thing. I want it to be for pleasure and enjoyment. Thank you so much for watching. Please share in the comments what your favourite reads of the year are so far, and if you have any reading goals. I just love talking about books. Until next time, many blessings.